But again, let's get into the Atlantic Coast Conference, the Coastal Division preview show. And just like we did last week, Al, I hope you were prepared for this, but going to start out with the
Okay.
Virginia Cavaliers because they were on top of the Coastal
Okay.
Division last year. They faced off against Clemson last year with Bryce Perkins as their quarterback.
hmm
Overall, 9-5, and in the conference 6-2. 449 points for, 380 points against. They were perfect 7-0 at home, which always helps to make sure that you protect the house. They were 2-3 away from home field, and they lost their last two. So, but they did have looks like a ranked win in there. As you know, the big news is that Bryce Perkins is gone, so they're going to have to rebuild around a guy named Brennan Armstrong. That a lot of people are saying, he was kind of like a 3-star guy, but he is a dual threat guy, and he is expected to run the ball, maybe not as much as Perkins, but he is going to be expected to step into that Bronco Mendenhall quarterback position and run the ball.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was a huge part of their offense. As a matter of fact, I was looking up some stats for this show, and he accounted for about 80% of their total offense last year. So that's a monstrous hit to have to take and go into this season. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure our final rankings for the Coastal will probably reflect that. And I like how we have our own kind of things that we look for when we're doing, research for the show. You have the points for, points against, the things that you look for right there. And, I like to have their schedule and where they're going to play. I noticed, they're out of conference games. They play the kickoff classic against Georgia. Virginia Military, they play UConn. This is bad. I shouldn't say garbage teams on the air, but they're garbage teams. Okay, they should be easy wins. And they play Old Dominion as well. And then they have road games. Clemson, Georgia Tech, Duke, VT. They got a pretty tough schedule there. They got to play Clemson and Georgia. Okay, in the same year. That's pretty tough. And the fact that you said, you got to replace with Bryce Perkins with Brennan Armstrong, that's going to be no easy task. I just don't know that you've seen anything from Brennan Armstrong yet to know that, whether he can capably replace him or not. We're just going to kind of have to wait and see. I mean, his stat line from last season was 15 of 20 for 196 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. That's just really not a lot of information to go off of. So, they got to look to a lot of things. Who's going to be their guy at running back? I think the guy that they're going to have coming back, or one of their guys, is going to be Wayne Talapapa, or however you say his last name, Talapapa. Okay, I'm not really sure how you say that last name. It's funny because you would think we would have practice with weird names with all the people that Clemson's been getting lately, but that's not one I have practiced or heard. But he had less than 500 yards for him last year, so he's going to be counted on a lot more. So he's going to have a big time increase in his workload to kind of make up for Perkins and that kind of thing. So they got a couple other guys. Mike Collins is a sophomore who may have to step up a little bit. They did not recruit a running back in the 2020 class. From what I saw. So I don't think you're going to, have to count on any incoming freshmen or anything like that. But their receivers, if you'll notice, look a little differently. Do you have anything on the receivers? I know who they've lost. They've lost some big-time guys there. But if you have anything to say about the receivers before I kind of jump in there and take the rest of this thing, go for it.
Well, I will say that they did not recruit a running back, but they just recently landed Indiana transfer Ronnie Walker Jr., which is a big-time running
Okay.
back there, and they think that he's going to be able to get a waiver for eligibility to play in 2020. So I have note there, and it does seem that they're going to be returning a ton of secondary talent as well. So I put down here that this team, I think, has the defense to hang. It all centers around how good can Brennan Armstrong be, and if they can get
Right.
a running back like Ronnie Walker. I didn't have anything about the wide receivers in particular, but I will say that, and I agreed with you in the sense that playing Clemson, drawing Georgia, it's just one of those things that I hate that ACC teams do. These middle of the pack ACC teams really need to kind of get away from going after SEC teams at the first game of the season. Now, I'm not saying don't go after them, but I think that the scheduling needs to get a little bit better for them to build upon some wins instead of starting the season off with a loss, especially the fact that you're having to get these SEC teams in neutral site games. But guess what? This neutral site game, I believe, is in Atlanta, Well, that's not a neutral
Yeah,
site
yeah.
game for Georgia. I mean, get out of here with that.
Right.
So you basically given up a home game, getting a neutral site game that's actually a Georgia home game, and it's the first game of the season, and it's going to be televised nationally. And it's not, if Virginia lays an egg, just like what Duke did last year against Alabama, they had no reason to be playing Alabama as the first game of the season. I hope these schools are getting a ton of money for this, because it's making the ACC look bad right out the gate, and I've never liked it. But my overall thoughts on the Cavaliers are that they are not going to return to the ACC championship game this year unless Brennan Armstrong can turn in to be one of the top quarterbacks in the conference, which I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you there. I think you're pretty much spot on. I mean, the fact that they lose Bryce Perkins, which again I said was 80% of their offense. They lost their top two receivers in Hasise Dubois and Joe Reed. Okay, that was their two best receivers. So their leading returning receivers, Terrell Jana, and he has 73 catches for 878 yards and only 3 touchdowns last year. That's their leading returning receiver. So they're going to have some guys step up and make some plays there. And again, the same thing with the running backs. They only have a guy coming back who had just I think it was, I said 500 yards, something like that, less than 500 yards. Not a lot of offense. I mean, they're completely gutted, it seems like, on offense. So I'm not looking for a lot from Virginia this year. I think their defense, like you mentioned, is going to have to really step up, and they can. They've been pretty good defensively for several years now. So I think they're going to have to keep them in the ball games, especially earlier in the season as Brennan Armstrong tries to move along.
Thanks for watching this video, and make sure to join our live show every Monday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time right here on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it.